Imagine this. You wake up one morning, your chest heavy with an unnamable dread. The sun is shining, your life is, by all appearances, perfectly fine. Yet something gnaws at you, a whisper in the back of your mind. This isn't enough. This can't be all there is. You scroll through the smiling faces on your screen, the motivational quotes, the relentless positivity. Be happy. Stay grateful. Think positive. But the more you try, the emptier it feels. Here's the paradox. The harder you chase happiness, the further it runs from you. Why? Because happiness, as you've been taught to seek it, is a lie. Not the absence of suffering, not the constant high of pleasure, not the Instagram perfect life, but something far darker, far more real. What if true contentment doesn't come from light, but from shadow? What if the key to a meaningful life isn't in avoiding pain, but in embracing it? Think of the last time you felt truly alive. Was it when everything was easy? Or was it when you faced something brutal, a loss, a failure, a truth you didn't want to see, and survived? The ancients knew this. The Stoics trained in discomfort. Nietzsche declared, "To live is to suffer. To survive is to find some meaning in the suffering." Jung warned that the brightest light casts the darkest shadow, and that shadow holds the parts of you you've been running from. So here's the question that changes everything. What if happiness isn't something you find, but something you forge in the fires of your own suffering? And if that's true, what does that mean for the way you've been living? The answer is closer than you think. But first, you must face the hidden force that's been holding you back. The problem isn't that life is hard. It's that you've been taught to hate the hardness. Modernity sold you a fantasy that suffering is a glitch, an error to be fixed with pills, productivity hacks, and positive thinking. But this is the great illusion. The pursuit of happiness as a permanent state is the very thing that makes happiness impossible. Why? Because the human mind isn't wired for endless bliss. It's wired for meaning. And meaning is born in resistance, in friction, in the moments that force you to confront who you really are. Nietzsche called it amor fati, the love of fate. Not just accepting what happens, but embracing it, needing it. Schopenhauer saw it too. Life is will, and will is suffering. But in that suffering lies the raw material of transcendence. Yet here you are, conditioned to numb every discomfort, to pathologize every moment of sadness, to treat pain as an enemy rather than a teacher. The psychological trap is this. You've been taught to fear your own darkness. Carl Jung knew this better than anyone. The shadow, the repressed, denied parts of yourself, doesn't disappear when you ignore it. It grows stronger, whispering in your addictions, your anxieties, your sudden bursts of inexplicable rage. Society, too, conspires in this evasion. Consumer culture thrives on your dissatisfaction. Social media rewards your performance of happiness, not your truth. Even therapy, in its worst iterations, can become just another way to fix yourself into a more palatable version, rather than to know yourself fully and mercilessly. So ask yourself, what if depression isn't a malfunction, but a signal? What if anxiety isn't a disorder, but a reckoning? What if the parts of yourself you've been running from are the very things that could set you free? The consequences of ignoring this truth are far worse than you realize. You think you're escaping suffering, but you're only deepening it. Every time you numb the pain with distraction, every time you force a smile when you want to scream, every time you tell yourself, "I shouldn't feel this way," you're not avoiding darkness, you're feeding it. The weight grows heavier, the silence louder. And one day, you wake up and don't recognize yourself anymore. This is the great irony of modern life. The more you try to control your emotions, the more they control you. Cognitive science confirms it. Suppression amplifies. What you resist persists. Your brain wired for survival, interprets your avoidance as danger, flooding you with more anxiety, more rumination, more of the very thing you're trying to escape. But the consequences run deeper than psychology. Philosophers like Sartre saw it clearly. Hell is other people, but worse than that, hell is yourself when you've spent years lying about who you are. The existential crisis creeping into your generation isn't a coincidence. It's the inevitable result of a culture that prizes positivity over truth, comfort over courage. Look around. The epidemics of loneliness, addiction, and despair aren't random. They're the symptoms of a world that refuses to acknowledge the most fundamental law of human existence. You cannot have light without shadow. The happiest people you know aren't those who avoid suffering. They're the ones who've stared into the abyss and learned to dance with it. The most resilient minds aren't those that never break, but those that have been shattered and rebuilt themselves, stronger at the broken places. So ask yourself, what parts of your soul have you exiled in the name of staying positive? What truths about your life are you refusing to face? And how much longer can you keep running before the darkness catches up? The way out isn't what you've been told. It's harder. It's darker. And it's the only thing that works. The way out is not around the darkness, but through it. This is the radical truth every wisdom tradition whispers. You must descend before you can rise. The Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort. The shamans of old sought vision in hunger and solitude. Nietzsche's Zarathustra climbed mountains only after wandering the depths. Your liberation begins with one blasphemous act. Stop trying to be happy. Instead, be real. Feel the anger you've been swallowing. Sit with the sadness you've been numbing. Let the parts of yourself you've deemed unacceptable finally breathe. This is shadow work, not as self-help glitch, but as spiritual warfare. Jung warned that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you'll call it fate. What he didn't say is this: your darkest corners hold your greatest power. The addict's hunger is misplaced transcendence. The anxious mind is an uninitiated shaman. Your depression might be the birth pangs of a self you've been too afraid to become. Practical rebellion looks like sacred sadness. Let tears come without apology. They water the roots of your strength. Ritualized suffering, cold showers, pre-dawn wake-ups, fasting not as punishment, but as alchemy. Dangerous truth-telling. Write the letter you'll never send. Scream into the void. Admit what you truly want. History's freest souls were never the comfortable ones. They were the scorched ones, the ones who burned in their own private hells and emerged with new eyes. But this is only the threshold. The final revelation changes everything. Here is the secret at the end of all secrets. Happiness was never the point. The desperate pursuit of happiness is like chasing the horizon. It forever recedes from your grasp. But meaning? Meaning is found in the chase itself. Not in the absence of storms, but in learning to sail. Not in a life without pain, but in a life where pain matters. Nietzsche's eternal recurrence, the idea that you must live every moment of your life again and again for eternity, was never a thought experiment. It was an initiation. Would you crumble at the thought? Or would you fall to your knees in gratitude for every scar, every heartbreak, every unbearable lesson that forged you? This is the ultimate inversion. Your depression was the soil. Your anxiety was the compass. Your rage was the fire. And your so-called flaws, they were the keys all along. The dark philosophy for a happy life isn't about happiness at all. It's about becoming so recklessly alive that joy and sorrow become to notes in the same symphony. Becoming so intimate with your shadows that they no longer frighten you, they fuel you. So tonight, when the world sleeps, ask yourself the only question that matters. If I stopped running from myself today, who might I wake up as tomorrow? The answer will terrify you, and then, at last, it will set you free.